Here in the heart of mid-Wales, nestled on the edge of the Cambrian Mountains, you will discover Gilfach Nature Reserve. Bought by Radnorshire Wildlife Trust in 1988, it's an old farm with many opportunities to walk amongst nature and wildlife.
When Gilfach came up, to me it became a major lever for hopefully making people aware of what an important habitat was, because it had that unique mixture of the heather moorlands on the top down to the marteg with all of the otters, which were then very rare, that lovely cross-section of lovely old stone walls and those lovely stone that make up the borders of the fields, the flower-rich meadows and the mountain pansy, that indicator to me of a habitat that was under threat. So I just saw it as a very important, iconic place really. And I wanted to sort of use Gilfach as a lever for us to do more to stop habitat loss and to make people aware of the huge variety of life that there was. So yes, it was a very fast-moving time. We just established the Radnorshire Wildlife Trust as an independent wildlife trust, and then along comes Gilfach. So it was pretty chaotic, and we had to work pretty hard to convince people that it was the right thing to do. And Gordon and I, luckily Gordon could see my drive and getting it, and Gordon Parker was absolutely a wonderful support too. And we did various things, like I remember we drove down to Dorset one day to try and meet a funder to see if we could get funding to buy it, because we were in a frantic state. The auction was coming up, we had to put in a bid, we had to find the money. I remember being in North Street in Radnorshire on the day when the conclusive bids were accepted. Well, I was very upset because we heard we had been outbid. Within days, or if it was a couple of weeks, that top bidder actually realised that they couldn't make it. So, yes, we got this really amazing news that actually we had succeeded, and the Radnorshire Wildlife Trust were now the owners of Gilfach, thanks to the support of the National Heritage Memorial Fund. Their 100,000 really clinched our purchase. We were just delighted, but probably at the same time absolutely terrified of what we were taking on, because there was virtually no access to the house. The house was in a beautiful dilapidated state, as were the buildings. The walls were still there, but the roofs were pretty gammy, and it was a lot to take on. I'd love it if it had written its diaries for the last few hundred years. I'd love to have known the people who have passed there and the hub of life that probably would have been there. And the fact that it is on probably one of the routes that the monks would have walked between Ystrad Fflir and Abercwmbir. And just imagining that route way and who passed there and the stories they could have told us, I find very compelling.
To get money together from the Heritage Lottery Fund to purchase the site, but then more importantly from my point of view, money was made available for a biological survey of it, and we were able to secure the services of Steve Chambers, who's a very good all-round botanist, mycologist, and peering day in day out. He's managed to find over 400 different sorts of lichens there, which is about a third of the entire lichen flora for Wales, which is about just under a quarter of that for the whole of Britain, which is extraordinary, because not only have we got ancient trees there, but we've got these wonderful rock outcrops, and we've got fascinating little micro-habitats like the track bed of the old railway line as a site for grassland fungi. Most of these interesting grassland fungi, such as the beautiful coloured waxcaps, it takes years and years and years of appropriate management to create a site with any number of these little waxcaps, and Gilfach's got over 20 different sorts, which puts it into the category probably of international importance. And then we've got a few ancient trees which support, in particular, one particular lichen, Basidia circumspecta. We've probably got the best population in Britain, that a very rare lichen on these ancient trees. There's over 50 notable plant and fungi species which we need to be looking after. There are over 100 populations in total on the reserve, so just keeping track of those 11 is a massive task.
I think the first time was very shortly after it had been acquired by the Trust. I met with my mother. My late mother was an expert in medieval buildings, So she absolutely loved it, and she always liked farm building, and she loved it. She was telling me all about the construction, and she was very interested in the roof timbers and things like that. And of course we were both interested in longhouses. She was interested in them from an architectural point of view, and for me the idea of living next door to cattle was very attractive. But I think we both absolutely loved the longhouse, because it was everything that we everything that's important to us was sort of there somehow. You know, its past, its future, and its present, its construction, its associations, the fact that people and animals lived side by side in those days. So I mean, I still love it. I just like going and just standing in it. But it was lovely to see it. It was still very sort of covered in moss and very like a lot of houses around here in the wet valleys. But just such a lovely. It was like going into a little sort of wrinkle in the map, really. It was like it had been left completely on its own.
So part of my job was to oversee the grazing. There was one particular field right on the edge of the drive which had a wonderful vegetation based upon yellow ants' nests, and that needed very, very gentle grazing in order to maintain the ants' nest and the carpet of dwarfed flowers, essentially. Stop it from being overgrown, but at the same time not have so much stock in there that they kick the ants' nest to pieces. So that was a good part of the job, was actually controlling the grazing on a day-to-day basis. We had a grazing plan at that time which was fairly detailed, well, very detailed, and then it also involved obviously walking up the top of a willow at least once a week. But we were looking at all the different birds. We had a great range of birds, particularly the redstarts and the pied flycatchers that my grandson tended to call flying pie-catchers, which is... but there was, the birds were one of the glories of the reserve, dippers on the river. And I've never ever seen two cuckoos sitting on a fence 3 metres apart cuckooing at each other. But this is what we had on the Gilfach. So it was absolutely fantastic for bird life. We had 3 major badger sets. One was in amongst the fields down by the river, and the badgers never came out till it was dark. The other one was up on the side of the Gamacht, and they would come out when it was dusk. And the other one was in the wood, and they would tend to come out much earlier. They could be out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
I like winter, and even though I worked outside a lot of winter, I still enjoyed the winters wherever I was. Having both the stoves lit, there was no television there, we had no internet service, no mobile phone, but we did have Radio 4, and that wasn't bad actually. It's just a warm, encompassing feeling being in the house. It sort of wraps itself round you. It's lovely. The house is wonderful. I'd bake cakes, usually cherry and almond, banana, a couple of Victoria sponges, jam and lemon, and Barabrith, of course. Over the years I did it, I raised £6,000, but not without help, because a friend of mine, Doris, she'd work in there, and that always did very well. But 2 people who came to almost every open day I did was Brian and his late wife Barbara Lawrence. And Brian could enthrall the room with his tales of local knowledge. And people would ask him all sorts of things and he could answer it. And really, my memories are of Brian and everybody round the table. The fires were lit. People had spill out into the sitting room, and he sort of resonated round the house. And it was wonderful. It was just so wonderful. Tawneys always calling autumn. You know, you'd hear him across the valley, and Pip could imitate the call, and he'd call them and they'd answer him. You know, he had a conversation.
Knew the young'uns were around somewhere because it was clicking its beak ever so loud, and I went past under it, got to my woodshed, and there was a young tawny right in the middle of the track. I can't leave that one on the track, I'll put it in a tree. And I bent down to pick it up, and I got such a whack on the back of my head from the adult, and it really made me lunge forward, but I thought, blimey, and I didn't pick it up. Now it'll come back. So I went to the tractor shed and got a a welding hard hat and a visor and put that on. And when I came back, this one on the path had gone. But I still got the one off my woodshed and put that up the tree. Jonathan arranged for us to go to his place and learn charcoal burning. Because the trust had got a charcoal kiln at one of the reserves. And they brought it back to Gilfach, and we must have been half a dozen of us, round about that. Went on the charcoal burning course, and then we started making our own charcoal at Gilfach. Well, Gilfach became famous for the red start. I saw a red start, I don't know if it got a slug or something like that, and it was trying to eat it. I'd got some mealworms, thought I better give it a mealworm. The red start was watching me and it came down, and I thought, blimey. And it started from there, and after a bit it would come and sit in your hand, and then of course the others would learn. So every year red starts would come and sit on your hand. My best day I had mealworms in the palm of my hand, and a young'un sat on my thumb and the male sat on my fingertips, who were feeding the young'un from mealworms in my hand. That became well known, and photographers started to come up because red start's a difficult one to catch.
I think one of the main things is seeing a result at the end of both at the end of the day. You can see where you've been and what you've done, and also long term, seeing the developments over the years, having been around for a long time. You can see changes and improvements there. I also enjoy the teamwork, working with other people with similar interests. Well, a lot of practical skills like pointing and dry stone walling, hedge laying, using a chainsaw, fencing, boardwalk building. Hammered in a lot of nails and staples in my time. I think it's really been a matter of sort of job satisfaction and seeing the development of the reserve over a period of nearly 30 years, 29 years. There have been quite a lot of changes. It's satisfying to have played a part in that, really.
But I think Gilfach is a glimpse into really what is special about this area. A little glimpse of a way of life that has not quite gone, and chance to really see it. If we can get visitors to be inspired by Gilfach and take some of their good memories and interesting ideas to other places, that would be wonderful.
Come and experience it. You know, find all out you can about it, the footpaths, and where's the best place to see what there is. And if you're a wildlife enthusiast, you are definitely going to see something to float your boat, definitely.
The variety of wildlife really is one of the main things. I mean, when you think about it, there's perhaps lots of other little valleys in Wales that are like it, but you've not got the access to them that you've got at Gilfach.
It's accessible, it's so wonderfully accessible as well. That's the beauty of it. Certain times in the year it knocks you in the eye because of its just sheer beauty to go there in late August when even earlier than that when the bell heather's out, and then the common heather comes out, and the gorse. Now we've got patches of European gorse in the spring, and in the autumn of course we've got all the western gorse, which looks brilliant. So and the flower-rich meadows throughout the summer months, and the spring flowers in the woodlands. So and what I think the challenge is to get people to even see them and to appreciate them and to enjoy them and to enrich their lives. And I think Gilfach, enriching people's lives, that's, I think, has got to be our number one. Also providing the world with this amazing library of genetic diversity.
Special place to be, and makes it more important really to carve out those things that are important that we keep for future generations, which to me a lot of it is based on the natural world. Things. There's always something to grab your imagination, and well-being is all the sort of in word now. And for me, half an hour at Gilfach when you are just focused on where you are is fantastic. Everybody should be able to do that.